Testing. Okay, good. Hello. Welcome to the somewhat emotional final Robert Lowell Memorial Lecture Series. We are so happy to have you all here. We have three fabulous poets who are also BU alum here to read for you tonight. Erin, Belieu, Maggie, Dietz, and Phillips. Enjoy. I will also say that on Thursday, May 1st, we will be having a poetry reading by a poet you may have heard of, Robert Pinsky, and a little party to celebrate his retirement in the new building that looks like it's going to tip over on the 17th floor. So check our website for information on that. And right after the reading, there will be a reception and book signing next door. So make sure to come over, get some books, have some food, and enjoy. Please welcome Robert Pinsky, the founder of this series 20 years ago.
Thanks, everybody, and thank you, Annette. Nancy Livingston, the BU alum who helped me design this poetry reading series, was a genius at publicity and advertising and organizing. She did not use the word public relations. She liked words. Her part of Nancy's elegance was she called advertising, advertising, and publicity, publicity. So she asked me, as we set up the series, for information. And I told her the local treasured legend that in room 222, where we still have the creative writing courses, Robert Lowell taught a course in which the students included George Starbuck, Anne Sexton, and Sylvia Plath. So Nancy, thinking about that, said that the subtitle for the Robert Lowell Memorial Reading Series should be In the Spirit of Room 222. For this final edition of the series, I tried to follow that spirit. There are many wonderful poets who are alums of the BU MFA program. They've published wonderful books. Many of them are my friends. I allowed myself to think about the legends about Starbuck and Plath and Lowell and Sexton going to the Ritz. The old jokes are the best jokes. I'll quote, they said they used to park in the no loading zone. And they said, in the loading zone. I screwed up the joke. They used to park in the loading zone. And they used to say, that's okay because we are getting loaded. I think maybe by screwing that up, I made it even better. In that spirit, I let myself think about those three poets being colleagues in the art and friends in the art. They benefited from having the academic context where BU welcomed them. And the academic context, I believe, benefited profoundly from having artists take part. If you've attended some of these over many years, when I do introductions, you're aware that I sometimes say, I don't read the person's Wikipedia entry. And I'll follow that pattern in saying, Maggie Dietz, Erin, Belieu, and Phillips have published lots of books, and they have taught places, and they have won prizes. As an introduction, I'm going to read 4 poems to you. 3 of them by these poets, by Maggie, Erin, and Carl. And I'll begin with a poem that for me comments on the large civic, social, political context that we're all aware of. And the poems I'm going to read by these 3 people revere philosophia. The poems are in the spirit of the beauty of knowing and how the highest form of human action, the highest form of praxis is theoria, to know. And the poems are all about imperfection, that knowledge is never perfect, but we still pursue it. So I'll read an incantation by my former colleague and friend, Czesław Miłosz, the Polish poet, who asked me to help him create an English version out of the Polish. Can't resist saying that this poem is so heartfelt that many eminent academic critics were positive that he couldn't possibly mean it. It must be ironic. And I was pleased to explain to them, no, Czesław means it. Incantation. Human reason is beautiful and invincible. No bars, no barbed wire, no pulping of books, no sentence of banishment can prevail against it. It establishes the universal ideas in language and guides our hand so we write truth and justice with capital letters, lie and oppression with small. It puts what should be above things as they are. It is an enemy of despair and a friend of hope. It does not know Jew from Greek or slave from master, giving us the estate of the world to manage. It saves austere and transparent phrases from the filthy discord of tortured words. It says that everything is new under the sun, opens the congealed fist of the past. Beautiful and very young are Philosophia and poetry, her ally in the service of the good. As late as yesterday, nature celebrated their birth. The news was brought to the mountains by a unicorn and an echo. Their friendship will be glorious. Their time has no limit. Their enemies have delivered themselves to destruction. Their enemies have delivered themselves to destruction. And as Czesław implies by his title incantation, comma, ultimately. This is a poem by Maggie Dietz. Cerberus. One mouth eats the hand that feeds it. One tongue soothes and binds a wound. One mouth oozes its forever hunger into a moonless river. One nose scents the trails of specters. One flares toward every flock of meat. One lifts only when the icy air unfurls ambrosia. One throat growls fire, another thirst. One jowl revs, another wilts. One jaw commands a phalanx of fangs, and one surrenders its catch. 2 ears are pricked up for whips, and 2 for hooves. One furred muzzle drips limbs from its hinges. One has never seen a seed of blood. One nape cranes toward caresses. One chokes against its ruff of chains. One swans into uneasy sleep. One mind is ever somewhere else. One flushes pheasants in its dreams. One rages in its cave of bone. One body bears it all. Here is a poem by Erin, Belieu. Your failure was most predictable and daily. Like the wee fluorescent lizards still creeping greenly along the front door frame, who think the house the image of escape, despite how clear the world is just behind them, who, wasting, never know we never mean to trap them, we try to help. But God It's tough to take this animal made complete from dumb instinct, the urge that drives them steadily amiss, constant and unfair. It hurts to watch them scramble, dewlaps throbbing, the Swiss precision of their fear. Now, sorting out the wreck, she digs her broom into another hidden, grubby crack to find the husk these creatures leave us because of what they lack. And I thought I wouldn't bother with a poem by Phillips. A poem by Phillips. Somewhere right now, a hawk has just entered a meadow's airspace, and in turn the meadow becomes all but noiseless. You're asleep, finally. The competing fears that cross your face routinely at last give way, not to innocence exactly, maybe more of freedom from having to be anyone to anyone. That alone, but this time not minding it. Is it true that only by having first passed through absolute despair can we arrive at anything close to self-knowing? Are birds and dreams still considered dangerous because they mean possibility? Now, when I say body, it's as if to correct myself for what I missed before looking elsewhere. I'm a song changing. I'm a light rain falling through a vast darkness toward a different darkness. It could be anything. The earth. It could be the sea. My pleasure in those poems and knowing the poets who made them explain why in the spirit of Room 222, I let myself just go by my feeling. I invited people that I felt were like colleagues in the art, people who were students and who became friends in the art. No judgment on anyone else. It's a feeling, and I allowed myself to have that feeling. And I promise you a 3-part something quite good.
Setting my timer so I don't abuse you. Oh, how sad. Is that good? You did that with such mastery. Okay. Hi, thank you all for coming, and thank you to so many friends from different parts of life in Boston and from other places. It's really lovely that you all made an effort to be here. You know, for weeks I've been trying to think about what I would say about being invited here by dear Robert in the spirit of Room 222. And I'm trying. You really changed my life in every meaningful way. And I'm so grateful to you for your beautiful poems and for your mentorship and for your friendship and for your stern finger wag on occasion when it was needed. And thank you so much. And what a magnificent career you've had sharing yourself with so many people. And I know I'm just one of the many people who are grateful for you. So thank you, dear Robert. I'm going to pull my shit together now. Okay. I'm going to set a timer so I don't abuse your good friendship. Okay. I'm just going to read a few poems from my last book, which was Come Hither, Honeycomb. And I'm going to read, just to show you that I'm not a complete slacker, I do have a few new poems in the world. I have a new and selected coming, which is exciting. It makes me feel like a grown-up poet, which means I have to write a lot of new poems really quickly. So if you have any prompt ideas, I'll be collecting them at the reception afterward. Think I'm kidding, but really any ideas you have are great. So this, actually, I'm not going to start with that. I'll end with that. This is a poem that we talked about actually with the BU students today. It was kind of lovely for Maggie and Carl and me to get a chance to like meet our family and the new students in the program who are just like so smart and ask such great questions and were just lovely. So thank you all for being there and for being so generous with the three of us today. And we were talking about the structure of the villanelle. And so I'm going to start with the villanelle that's called Instructions for the Hostage. You must accept the door is never shut. You're always free to leave at any time, though the hostage will remain no matter what. The damage could be managed, so you thought. Essential to the theory of your crime, you must accept the door is never shut. Soon you'll need to choose which parts to cut for proof of life, then settle on your spine, though the hostage will remain no matter what. Buried with a straw, it's the weak who start considering their price. You're no great sum. You must accept the door was never shut and make a half-life there, aware, apart, afraid your captors lost you so far down, though the hostage will remain no matter what. Blink once for yes, and twice for yes. The heart makes a signal for the willing, its purity sublime. You must accept the door is never shut, though the hostage will remain no matter what. I'm going to read a poem that has my favorite weirdly named body part in it. I collect those if you've ever thought about it. There's a lot of strange ones. Islets of Langerhans is one that everybody knows. But there's the Canal of Schlem. Do you know about this? Dr. Schlem was like, it's my shot, it's my chance, right? So the thing that keeps your tears back from most of the time, except for you're crying, is called the Canal of Schlem. Dr. Schlem. So I'm going to read that. Mostly I wrote this poem because I had this doctor that I had this very love-hate relationship with, because no matter what, so I would ask for drugs and he would tell me to do yoga. And that was sort of like, or use a neti pot, right? Like if I could be carrying my arm under my other arm and he'd be like, have you considered yoga? But it's good because he didn't let me turn into Judy Garland. So that was probably a good thing. So this is a poem called, and this was a poem for him, Dr. Ness. And his name, this is called Pity the Doctor, Not the Disease. Science, in its tedium, reveals that every spirit we spirit ganks a solid half hour from our lifespans. So says my doctor, a watery, Jesus-eyed man, and hard to suffer with his well-intended scripts for yoga and neti pots, notably stingy with the better drugs, in situ here amid the disinfected toys, dreadful in their plastic baskets. Above his head, the flayed men of medical illustration are nailed for something like decor. The eyeball scheme is best, with its wondrous Canal of Schlem, first favorite of all weirdly named body parts. It's just a splotch of violet on the diagram, but without it, our aqueous humors would burst their meshy dams and overflow. Dust thou art, to dust returnest, was not spoken of the soul. is what I quote to him as he thumps my back with his tiny doctor's tomahawk. But he's used to me. We have an understanding. What he means to miser, I've come to spend most lavishly. And I feel fortunate again to be historically shaky in the maths, enough to avoid making an easy sum of my truly happy hours, or nights curled sulphurous on my side, a price to sell shrimp boiling in anxious sleep. If we're lucky, it's always a terrible time to die. Better the privilege of booze than the whim of one more shambolic butcher shelling peasants in a wood, our world's long spree of Caesars starting wars to pay their bills in any given era's Rome. Turns out Longfellow's stomach did for him, and he died thirsty, calling for more opium. Free of the exam room now, I spot the same busted goldfish in his smeary bowl beside the door where he's glugged along for years, a mostly failed distraction for poxed or broken children. I raise my fin to him, celebrate the poison we're all swimming in, remembering the way you say cheers in Hungarian, Ishtan, Ishtan, meaning in translation, I'm a god, you're a god. This is really the best cheers. Hungarians are not kidding around. There we go. Okay. I'm going to read one more poem for this and then finish up with the last two. This is a poem called The Man Who Fills in Space, and it has an epigraph from Guy de Maupassant in his Letters from a Madman that says, "And from the moment that everything is limitless, what remains? The man who fills in space is petrified. The outline of each table, counter, his and the spouse's nightstands all blur beneath the mess of his collections. Covering his mouth, the man often yawns reflexively. It's hard to feel your own unease, so tedious, a house too quiet. And he is growing weightless, churlish, lapsing into sulks as the bees that work inside him plot more often to refuse him the lullabying comfort of their swarm. But when he pokes the canker of that great blank whatever he never hopes to find, he swears he hears it laugh, the terrible what of what is not. It yawns right back at him. The man who fills in space drips with the stalagmites he fashions for his temple, pillars made from leisure magazines, sour-smelling foreign change, a plastic bag engorged with dead men's wallets, the treasure of his mother's broken selomile. All the stuff of him pressed lovingly beneath a pelt of dust in which he sometimes thinks to write his name. And when he leaves each night to make himself less awfully not, and drinks to make the bees return, searching for the necessary spot from which to phone his mistress, sometimes the moon comes by, peering through the window of his car, to wonder at this man who fills in space. And the man looks back at her, marveling at how lonely she must be. Those barren miles, the nothing of a few golf balls, a clutch of silent flags planted in her porous white. Though he recalls the astronaut who left a tiny silver pin behind, proving someone he can't remember claimed another place he'll never go. The man who fills in space, he thinks of this while considering the moon, the sadness of the object, that single sharp prick alone somewhere in the universe. I'm going to finish with just two more poems. And this was my idea of an autumnal. I was trying to think of it like an old school autumnal written for the 21st century. So this is what that is. This is called Late Autumnal with Cockroach. Morning thick with inscrutable dinge, another season drained. I'm watching the pest control man fill the rat bait station, black attaché of poison hidden in the hedge. And while I pay a monthly bill for him to do my killing, still it seems miraculous how much insists on surviving despite us, what grinds it out, what hustles simply to continue. Like this plumply enormous roach, its carapace the molten brown of topaz, tooled cannily to fold into a ceaseless package. Look at it now collapsing to fit exactly between my deck's wooden slats. No matter what unspeakable agents we devise for it to carry to its nest, there comes calm in knowing there will always be an awful, inexorable more of something other than us to crawl or slither, gnaw and be gnawed. A peaceful certainty of moreness creeping through our filth to greet what's coming soon. Unloved, ingenious creatures, the few truly diligent, whom we can never drive off or annihilate completely. This poem remembers you, waiting in our unplugged cracks and fuming sewers, seeing the relentless engines you've willed yourselves to be, the valor of your tidy and despised machinery. So I will, I've timed that well. Good job, Erin. I'm going to finish with my newest poem. It was actually written as a prompt for the new Taylor Swift anthology, which was, I was very tickled. I think, are you going to read your Taylor Swift poem? No, I'm not. You've disavowed it. All right. I really love a prompt, and it was really fun to be asked to respond to a Taylor Swift poem, song of my choice, and I will let you decide at the reception which one I'm responding to if there are any Swifties in the audience. So this is a poem, my final poem. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you to the people, Annette and her entire staff who made this such a lovely event. We really appreciate all the work you put in. And so I'll finish with this poem called Cocklebur. Summer over, thorns invaded the playground while we were gone. Everyone got taller, the measure of meaner. Kids end up bloody, but the system won't pay to spray. This is the year the boys first wait for us inside the trees at the field's farthest corner. This is the year the girls stop running. Insipid tribe, now we flutter near the building's edge. Moms charged with minding aren't bothered, smoking outside the preschool door. They think they survived, and we will too. Cockleburs riddle the grass. We squat on hot tarmac, braiding each other's hair, learning to be patient with our boredom, learning why poison is a woman's best weapon. We never quite decide on the story. What is it that found her? What took her to the loneliest part of the field, and what were her crimes? She was poor, or not the right kind of pretty, or she wore a red miniskirt that showed her ass. But I'm thinking of last year's sleepover when she told us her stepdad scratches at her bedroom door, begging her to open up. A year younger than the others, I'm slow on the uptake, not cool like Kelly S. or Kelly M. I run my mouth, but I don't say much. The older girls are always threatening to beat me up, but I know what a whore is, or close enough. And I hear that scratch in the dark, know the creak in the hall. Whore. How good the word tastes when I put it in my mouth. Angry as the wind when a blizzard digs in. Thank you. Annette. All right. Is that a snort? Okay. Well, hi everybody. Thanks. I'm so delighted to be here and to read with Erin and Carl, and humbled and even a little confused, but I'm glad to be here. And I cannot do what Erin did. And say words about Robert and Belieu, or it will not go well. But I will say that talking to the graduate students, the wonderful graduate students this afternoon, I was thinking, wasn't I just here? Weren't Jill and I just drinking Dollar Coors Lights and talking about something Robert said and scanning poems with, and it turns out that's not true, but I'm going to steal Robert's move. I didn't know he was going to read our poems, but I'm going to read a poem by Robert. And it took me a while to figure out which one, and this one fits the bill, and Ellen's in it. Biography by Robert Pinsky. Stone wheel that sharpens the blade that mows the grain, wheel of the sunflower turning, wheel that turns the spiral press that squeezes the oil expressed from shale or olives, particles that turn to mud on the potter's wheel that spins to form the vessel that holds the oil that drips to cool the blade. My mother's dreadful fall, her mother's dread of all things, death, life, birth, my brother's birth just before the fall, his birth again in Jesus, wobble and blur of my soul, born only once, that cleaves to circles. The moon, the eye, the year, circle of causes or chaos or turns of chance. The line of a tune as it cycles back to the root, arc of the changes. The line from there to here of Ellen speaking, thread of my circle of friends, the art of lines, chord of the circle of work, radius, lives of children growing away, the plant radiant in air, its root in dark. I'll read a few poems from my forthcoming book. My other books are they're too old to read from now. They fall apart. So this poem, I won't banter too much, but the book
uses as sort of like a scaffolding or clothing or cloak or something, the Persephone and Demeter myth, but it's really kind of under and behind things mostly. Several of the poems refer directly to the mythology in some way, and I won't read many of those tonight, but I'll begin and end with some that point to the myth. Lament. Before you were born, I gave you the meadow. I gave you the soil, the seed, and the plow. I gave you a home in my body, a home in my house, in my temple, the reverence of people, my thin tapered ankles. I made you immortal. I made you a mirror of everything precious. I made you a basin of nectar, ambrosia, a bed of narcissus shot through with stars. Later, I let you unravel and tantrum. I let you coat your eyes with ash and dye your hair a thunderous sunrise. I let you, I gave you, I held you, I made you, but I couldn't save you. I couldn't save you. Several of the poems in the book have the same title, which is Metamorphosis. This one takes the title most literally. Metamorphosis. In white sunlight, we unzipped the lid of the habitat, a miniature pop-up hamper. The butterflies had arrived by mail, still worms, spindled and sharp-looking, little tailless seahorses unfurling in a plastic tub with goo at the bottom like suet, the caterpillar's food dotted with frass. I didn't point out that they shit where they eat, or that painted ladies sounds like a polite term for prostitutes. We were to keep them misted and away from bright windows. The webbing wasn't worrisome, we read. In the wild, it kept them stuck to plants, and they could pull the silk to close a leaf around them and hide from bad guys. For days, nothing happened. You hunched next to the buffet, watching yourself watch them in the mirror. From the doorway, I watched the way your hair curled at the base of your neck as you sweated, the way your t-shirt, when you sprayed the mister, showed your tan lines. You were there when one let go a ghost, a gauze of skin almost too soft to see. After we moved the paper disc affixed with shivering chrysalides, after more boring, thrilling days of waiting, the pods darkened and the first one ruptured into a crumpled butterfly, a bald batik handkerchief spilling from a pocket. Next came the slow calico explosion, the beating and pulsing that burst the wings into being. You may not remember, but I do. You were beside yourself, pulsing, triumphant. 4 hatchings and 2 days of sugar water later, it was time to let them go. You weren't sad. We'd read it was the right thing. You toted the mesh cylinder out to the picnic table and opened the flap, just enough to let one land. A leftover scuff of polish on your fingernail. Your teeth still short and rounded, 2 rows of sugar pearl corn. The sun shone down as one by one you launched them into the air, like so many futures that couldn't come true. I was going to read the villanelle that opens this book, but Erin's villanelle is so good that I'm going to skip it. Okay, oh, all right, I guess I'll read it. I was all right. If you would let me. Only villanelle I've ever written. If you would let me. If you would let me hold you, I could breathe your purple hair, the flakes of makeup breaking from your boiling eyes. You'd see how much you need cool words. Outside the door, I've heard you seethe through years of trouble. I'd press away the shaking if you would let me hold you. I could breathe the atoms of your dreams, my face so close I'd eat your anguish, taste the tang of black tears leaking from your locked down eyes. You'd see how much you need to forgive, to be forgiven, to reach and cleave to something incorruptible and unforsaken. If you would let me hold you, I could breathe away your brinks, lay cushions underneath your cliffs. I'd let no shiv of light be taken from your Arctic eyes. You'd see how much you need. Is there no salve, no balm in Gilead to breach the brick and thistle of your hatred? If you would let me hold you, I could breathe. Your broken eyes would see how much you need me. This poem's composed almost entirely of lines from nursery rhymes, and it's my response to attempting to deal with the American mental health care system. Emergency fugue. If this is a true life, the little dog laughed, hang up and the clinician will, as a shepherdess should in 30 to 60 days, diddle diddle, return your ring around the rosy and call it macaroni. If this is a life, what is your reason to speak to the hickory dickory doctor? He's here we go round the press zero to speak to. He's going to the fair. He's here we go. He's eating Christmas pie. Sing he, sing ho, sing hang up the phone. The kittens have gone to St. Paul's. Hang up and dial. And how many times has the little lamb sat on a wall? 910, a good fat hen. 911, what's your hot cross buns? A man of words and not of deeds is not a thread and needle, though all the words he ever spoke were fiddle faddle feedle. Are there any full-de-riddle firearms in the house? Lull-de-riddle, no, sir. And are there any pills? Hush-a-bye, baby, go over the stile, go to the stable. The night is so raw. It's raining, it's pouring. Cock robin, farewell. The wind is in the east, and pussy's in the well. A branch gave way, and Simon fell. And hickory, dickory, who'll toll the bell? Childhood. One day in the woods, I was suddenly scared of the slender birches, their 1,000 bovine eyes, the way they would corporealize among the coarser trees, bright wicks lit with trembling yellow tears. Up close, they held out scrolls to decipher. When desolation chooses you, there is at first the feeling of being a little flattered. Another day, I hollowed out a snowbank to shelter a scrap of newspaper, an ink-mottled page from a red owl sail flyer I believed to be alive because the wind kept beating it up against my heels as I walked home from Queen of Angels Elementary, where in Sister Mary Fran's room, baby mice and chipmunks floated in ball jars of formaldehyde. I wanted everything to have a soul. Even then, I lived for springtime, for the slice of light angling between the window frame and vinyl shade. It is human nature to mistake relief for love. I could never predict anything, and I thought when there was nothing left to imagine, I would be relieved. I tried to imagine it. Read one more poem. Someone else. I entered someone else's suffering, and when I surfaced, I looked behind me into the sheen of it. We'd been to the bottom, the muck of scales and femurs of trees. I'd communed with the dead, my dead, to make sense of the sunless depths. They rocked me, father, grandmother, friend, in arms of slippery weeds that moved like flames. Later, the pond was a river that writhed, a worm at the end of a line on a map I couldn't follow. So many burps and lurches, so much pull. After I was dry, I saw my old hopes were ants in the bathroom. My life's work, an absurd pageant, that I had been alone and stupid, trying to steer the current like a mule. There have been no we, no sense, no fire underwater. In the mirror of the river, a silver river inched like a fish along a woman's scalp. I was supposed to know this woman. I was supposed to love her.
Hello. Thank you, Maggie. Thank you, Erin, for those wonderful readings. And thank you, Robert, for inviting us to do this. Thank you, Annette and Annika, and the wonderful students we met today. And there are many things I could say besides thank you, Robert, for changing my life and telling me about some random job in Missouri when I didn't even know where the state was. I thought, okay, I guess I'll do that. And it's like been my whole life. People say, try this. So I do that. But I've mostly been remembering all the times I was kind of a jerk, and how graceful you were about it. You know, I telling you that Robert Frost was a hack, basically, and you sending me home with an old man's winter night and saying, you know, maybe you should go home and scan it for meter. It's like, what is meter? I don't know. Or when I said, Elizabeth Bishop, kind of boring. I don't know what the big deal is. And you're politely saying, you know, I think you should go home and read a little more carefully. So that was good. I learned a lot from that. And I learned how wrong I often am. So I appreciate that. And for your beliefs, just in poetry and through your own poems, and in those of us who think we know a lot about poetry and still have a lot to learn. Very grateful. All right, so I'm going to read poems, obviously. I do remember long ago, Robert telling me in the beginning, he said, you know, you're going to have to work on your public presentation. This whole thing you have about how you seem nervous and all that and neurotic. And back then I said, it's real, Robert, and it still is. It's still real. So it's like, I'm terrified. So it hasn't changed. Okay. So here goes the timer. Right, this is called Before All of This. The title comes from the beginning of a Tom Petty song. Before all of this. And as usual, early summer seems all ready to hold inside it the split fruit of late fall, those afternoons whose diminished music will soon enough lie down in, surprised a little, to feel it all surprised. Meanwhile, how the wind sometimes makes the slenderest trees, still young, bend over, makes me think of knowledge conquering superstition. I can almost believe in that until the trees, like fear, spring back. Then a sad sort of quiet just after, as between two people who have finally realized they've stopped regretting the same things. It's like they've never known each other. Yet even now, waking, they insist they've woken from a dream they share, forgetting all over again that every dream is private. Whatever the reasons are for the dead under branches of the trees that flourish here, that the dead persist is enough. For me, it's enough. The air stirs like history, like the future, like history. Like so. From attention to adoration is a smallish distance. and yet no arrow, no boat with sail can cross it, like the mind's insistence. We'd reached the marshes by then that all the dead must come to. I could see my face tilted there, like a solar eclipse viewed indirectly, which is the proper way in a basin of water. You must hold it steady. Keep the basin safe from the wind's reach, its competing powers of revelation and distortion. Okay, I don't say much between poems, so I don't faint. Thicket. Some memories stay, like fallen throwing stars left to lie there. Most disappear. Whatever distinguished them, rubbed smooth by dailiness, glass into sea glass from the sea's tumbling. Like looking violence for once straight in the face and watching it turn, if not gentler, then differently violent, and telling yourself, that's not nothing at least, and calling it eros. But violence has no face. That's just words into pictures again. And eros, please. You can make the stars spell out anything if you stare long and hard enough. What part of didn't you wish for this aren't you getting, for example? Or, it's a quiet night, quiet, the way the animals here east of touch, but slightly north still of penetration, live mostly quiet. Most disappear. Alrighty, hello. It's going along, drinking water, not spilling it all across the rug, the way some people did. This is called Refrain. My fortress has many windows. From this one, I can tell the tide's going out. I can see the small purplish flowers further up from the water that you never stopped calling sea thistle, though that's still not right. The ring of aspens that surround my fortress, that of course know nothing of east or west or love when scattered in all its countless definitions, form a natural palisade that, in leafless months, can seem especially severe, but somehow as well inviting. How forgiveness might look in the face, say, if it had a face and forgiveness were real. My fortress is cold and windless. It's a choice not to step from it. I believe in gift as much, I think, as I believe in mastery. Even your mistakes were delicate. This poem is called, it's a title poem. It's called Scattered Snows to the North, which recently some people were joking, friends were joking about my titles and saying, your titles are so gay. And I was like, and I said, what are you talking about? That's so insulting. And they said, okay, Scattered Snows, comma, from the North. Gay? And apparently, yes, they all said, yes, gay. And they said it's the comma. It's the comma. It shows a certain kind of attitude. Anyway, I stand proudly behind it. Okay, Scattered Snows to the North. Does it matter that the Roman Empire was still early in its slow unwinding into never again? Then, as now, didn't people burst into tears in front of other people or in private for no reason that they were willing to give, or they weren't yet able to, or for just no reason? I've never stopped missing you, I used to practice saying, for when I'd need those lines, as I assumed I would, given what I knew then, nothing really, about things like love, trust, the betrayal of trust, and a willfulness that's only deepened inside me all these years, during which I can almost say I've missed no one, though it hurts to say it. Honestly, the Roman Empire, despite my once having studied it, barely makes any sense to me now, past the back and forthing of patrolled borders as the gauge and proof of hunger's addictive and erosive powers. But there were people, of course, too, most of them destined to be unremembered, who filled in their drawn lives anyway, because what else is there, to where the edges gave out? If it was night, they lit fires, presumably. Tears were tears. All right. This is called Gladiators. Oh yeah, there's a thread, see, Roman Empire, Gladiators. In case you're just thinking I'm randomly picking poems, I know what I'm doing. Gladiators. Each had been terrible enough to himself already, to that truest self inside, as only he could know it. So it seemed it should matter less what ways in particular they'd been terrible to each other, or even that they'd been terrible at all. Likewise, whether death mattered or not wasn't the point, had never been. They understood this now. Bird crossing sky, sky getting crossed, the sky after that. They believed about suffering that its special power is to define, even as it displaces it, everything it touches. They held on to each other. This poem's called Yes. Yes. But that was long, long ago. Back when lanterns were a real thing people used to check the foal's position inside the birth canal, or for a small boy to find his way home from shore. He must have fallen asleep. I can't see anymore. Where did everyone go? He isn't lost, just a little afraid, but he's learned how to trick himself into feeling less afraid. He makes a list in his head of all he knows for sure. That when the nights bloom with cricket song, not yet, not now, isn't what they're singing. They're not even singing. It just sounds like that. How what never happened, if it's remembered hard enough, can seem almost true. Nighthawks are called nighthawks for no fancier reason than because nocturnal. It was long ago. Now, as then, there were choices. If not every choice is one that we get to make, some we do. You can treat the past like a piece of fine glass to see yourself reflected in, or to see through. All right, okay. This is called Fist and Palm. There are plenty who'd hardly recognize me now. I used to be that cruel, by which I mean I was frightened mostly, and now I'm mostly not. Joy, if only flickeringly, each day astounds me. The man I used to be dismounts, relents for a while, before digging his boots, streaked with longing, my own longing, what I can't help, hard into my sides again. into the man I've become. His way of reminding me we've only stopped for rest, a short rest, some water. We've years to go still. He has his job, I have mine. Speechlessness is not an option, he whispers into my ear. He spits on the words themselves after, as if to make them stay, or just to make sure I'm listening. But I'm always listening, as I always obey. Isn't this obedience, these songs I've built from things too difficult to speak of? Okay, we have 2 more poems. Yay! If I were in your place, I would say yay, and just pray that they aren't in parts. But they aren't, so you're safe. Okay, this is called Back Soon, Driving. Where'd you get that title, Carl? I was texting my partner while driving through a blizzard. Shouldn't text and drive, but sometimes your poem title comes that way. Back Soon, Driving. The way the present cuts into history, or how the future can look at first like the past sweeping through. There are blizzards, and there are blizzards. Some contain us, some we carry within us until they die when we do. The snow falls there, barely snowing, into a long wooden trough where the cattle feed on those apples we used to call medieval, or I did, for their smallish size, as if medieval meant the world in miniature, but not so different otherwise from our own, just smaller, a bit sweeter, more prone, therefore, to rot quickly, which is maybe not the worst thing. Revelation is not disclosure. I love how the snow, taking itself now more seriously, makes the cattle look softer for a moment than their hard bodies are. And I'm going to end this with this poem called Career. Yeah, that's what it's called. I've not mastered the art of drinking water in front of people. More to learn. Career. Long after the dark that the singing was for is over, some keep singing for a while, as if refusing to stop could change the fact of daylight, or could make what it felt like to sing hidden inside the dark, that part at least, stay. What is it with the dark anyway, that the closer they get to it, the more some people seem to all but shake with expectancy, even those raised like us to expect nothing? What if all the truth is an overwashed sweatshirt, sometimes on purpose worn inside out? Yet the world's still so beautiful, he said. Sometimes, I whispered back, but barely, just in case he was listening. Sometimes it is. We were hours from nightfall. Everywhere, promises kept becoming apologies. Our way of talking without talking about the leaves coming to rest finally against their own images on the water's surface. It seemed enough. We understood it might have to be. We sat and watched, and briefly, it was. Thanks.
Thank you all so much. Thank you. Beautiful reading. See you next door. Come on over.